Great. All right. So that brings us now to our featured part of the program, and it's one that I've been looking forward to very much. I want to welcome our fellow member, Jerome Russell, to the screen. One day it'll be the stage, but Jerome, great to see you. Of course, our membership knows you well. You're president and COO of H.G. Russell & Company, a firm certainly founded by your dad and one that we'll be honoring a little bit today in our discussion. And it's just such a great success story of your firm, and you all do construction management, property management. You constructed some iconic buildings in Atlanta, 191 building, State Farm Arena, Mercedes-Benz, and even up in D.C., the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History. So just a great heritage in your firm. And Russell and Jerome, we look forward to hearing about the innovation going on under your dad's name.
Good. All right. Well, good afternoon, Rotary, Atlanta Rotary. I'm honored to be here, and we'll be introducing James J. Bailey. Okay. James is committed to living by his personal motto, build as we climb, change agent, thought leader, entrepreneur, and emerging philanthropist. James M. Bailey has dedicated his life to serving others. An Atlanta native and diehard Georgia Bulldog, James has a proven track record of success, recognized by 3 U.S. presidents for his leadership and community efforts. In 2012, James was one of the 8 Americans honored at the White House as a champion of change, following in the footsteps of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dedicated to service, James is a National Point of Light Award and Presidential Lifetime Volunteer Service Award recipient. James has served on numerous boards, including the Metro Atlanta Chamber and the Georgia Chamber Board of Directors, the Atlanta Beltline, TAD Advisory Committee, Georgia Forestry Foundation Trustee, and Chairman of Citizens Trust Bank's Next Generation Advisory Board. A graduate of Leadership Georgia, Leadership Atlanta, and the Regional Leadership Institute, James was also named to both the Atlanta Business Chronicle and Georgia Trends Magazine's 40 Under 40 Best and Brightest Leaders of the Future. He's a recipient of the Whitney M. Young National Community Service Medallion, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major for Service Award, a New Leaders Council fellow member, and Alpha Phi Alpha and the 100 Black Men of Atlanta. So James is very busy. But more importantly, in 2018, 2 years after the Russell family donated the 504 Fair Street building into a not-for-profit called the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurial, James came on as president and CEO of the Russell Center, honoring the great legacy and visionary business leadership of my father, Herman J. Russell Sr. He will lead the development of the largest center in America, driven by impact, dedicated to empowering Black entrepreneurs and small business owners. Over 50,000 square feet, designed to inspire ideas, create jobs, grow companies, and increase wealth in our community. James and his wife, NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander, currently reside in East Atlanta, and both of them are big fans of the many lakes across the state of Georgia. So with that, good afternoon, Jay.
I love it. Thank you so much, Chairman. Good to be here, Rotary. Looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, here's the first question. will you please share the purpose, vision, and mission of the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs and the progress that has been made since you've been CEO over the last 3 years?
Wow. Thank you, Jerome. I mean, it's hard to talk about the Russell Center without talking about the man. And I wish I could take credit for the mission. For those on the call, I'm sure in a Rotary body, a lot of you know the legacy of Mr. Russell. But if I just took a minute to talk about, this is the man that integrated the Chamber of Commerce on the city level and state level, helped underwrite the civil rights movement. When 100 students were locked up during the student movement, they made one phone call, one man bailed them all out. As we spoke about earlier, literally built half of our skyline. And those are the things that the public knows, but the public may not know, Jerome, is that, he was an incubator and accelerator before the even term was real. I mean, without a Herman Russell, we wouldn't have a T. Dallas Smith. Hope you're on the call, T. Dallas, or an Egbert Perry, or C.D. Moody, or a Noel Khalil, or even a Jay Bailey. Because I don't talk about it often, but when I do, it's funny that when I was a 14-year-old kid, I used to steal my mom's car to drive around Southwest Atlanta because I didn't believe that Black people could live in houses like that. And I came upon a house with a tennis court in the back. I later found out that was a brother that helped build the neighborhood, and he had a pool inside his house in the 40s, the kind of pool where a Dr. King would come over and try to get away from the world and figure out how he was going to change it. We're on hollow ground, and we've got to think about a man having the audacity to build a headquarter building that is a full city block wide and north of 50,000 square feet in the heart of the Jim Crow segregated racist South, to be a symbol to the community of what was possible. It's a powerful legacy, and we want to continue that with the Russell Center to create this safe space for Black entrepreneurs to fail and fly. There's so many programs out there that focus on being informative. Our goal is about being transformative. And so we've started with our first 100 entrepreneurs, then the pandemic hit. But our goal is to grow from 100 to 1,000. I remember when the pandemic struck, I read an article from the New York Times, and it was printed in the Wall Street Journal as well, saying that 41% of Black businesses would not endure this pandemic. It made me really proud when I saw the report towards the end of this year, the last year, that over 98% of our companies, the 117 that we started with, were still in business, and over 68% of them experienced growth. And we're just getting started, Jerome. A lot of platforms talk about diversity and inclusion. I think that the thing that they leave out most when you're talking about how you bring communities together and how you build communities is really a concept of belonging. And I think that's a space that we've really excelled at, because prior to the pandemic, we were seeing anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people a week walk through our doors. It was about belonging and leading with community, culture, and covenant, wrapping that around a world-class curriculum with world-class instructors for the life cycle of a business. Love what you said earlier about this not being about episodic programming, but transformation, and looking at how do we take a company from where they are to where they want to be. Aaron spoke of it. We don't graduate people at all. We're looking at now, how do we create this collaborative community that supports entrepreneurs, business owners throughout their process, and it's all about access.
So Jay, tell us, we right before the pandemic, the center was just popping from Monday through Saturday. And I really enjoyed coming there on Saturdays. Boom, and the pandemic came.
Yep.
Tell me how we pivoted and the impact of that pivot, whether it's, positive, negative. Can you share with us the pivot we've had to make because of the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, and back then, Jerome, it still puzzles me how we did it when we get into the spirit of belonging. We were still under construction. There was still dust on the floor and people still came. But the pandemic, outlined several things. I think more than anything else, the pandemic reinforced how much we need one another. And I think leading with that community, culture, and covenant, if we were only focused on the physical space, we were going to miss the mark. Very early on, we created what we call the business resource suite, a triage, because businesses needed real support in real time. And if you needed help from a lawyer to reconstruct a contract, we could connect you to a lawyer. If you needed an accountant to look at your books, you had connection to an accountant. All about that access again. I think that during the pandemic, and we can't talk about the pandemic because let's make no mistake, Black economics and Black people, there was an economic pandemic before COVID-19. So it only tripled or quadrupled what we were seeing already. And I think that was the time where we did a very good job of circling the wagons, circling around these companies. We helped over 147 companies successfully submit and get funding for PPP. These are the funds that were necessary in the beginning when a lot of Black companies were getting told no in every direction, providing the counsel, the coaching, and the access to the banks and the people that can help them with the financials. It's been a good time for us. And I think you can't talk about COVID-19 without talking about this great awakening that's happened in the past year when it comes to racial injustice. And we talk about some of the racial tensions happening all over America. It only lifted up the need for the Russell Center to have a very deliberate focus on Black entrepreneurs. And in Atlanta, guys, it's hard to talk about moving forward our city economically without having a conversation about race. Because in Atlanta, unfortunately, when you talk about class, you get race for free. And if we're talking about moving Atlanta forward economically without talking about race deliberately, we're being intellectually disingenuous in our approach to really try to move the needle. So really, Jerome, at the heart of the conversation about what we do to support Black businesses, we were doing that work before the pandemic. We were doing that work before George Floyd. So we really caught a wave to be a national voice about how do you support Black entrepreneurs? What is the methodology of change to actually see a move in the needle? So the pandemic, for all of its terrible parts, really shone a really bright light on what we're doing, but more importantly, our why.
Great, awesome. So tell the audience a little bit about how our programs work. And maybe you can elaborate on the Pacesetter program and some of the early successes that we're seeing out of the Pacesetter program.
Perfect. Because we are, we've now certified it, we're the largest center in the world. Right here in Atlanta, we're building the largest center in the world doing this work. We knew that we couldn't just build a moat around the center and say only a certain type of company could be in. Once the pandemic ends, once the racial tensions quell, people are going to need more than symbols of hope. They'll need institutions that manufacture it. And we want to be one of those institutions that manufacture it. How we do that is our big ideas model: inspire, develop, execute, accelerate, scale. We had to create a place for that postal worker that wants to take the leap, but knows nothing about entrepreneurship, what it is, what it isn't. And in the inspire stage, we take a company from just curiosity to building a concept. Is there a problem that you want to solve? But in the develop stage, we take that concept and create a company around it. How are you set up legally? Is there there? Let's do some use case analysis and understand this big problem that you want to take down. But in the heart of our middle model is execution. I'm a firm believer that execution trumps everything in business. You do, then you learn. So you take a whole stage doing customer discovery, partnering with Georgia Tech and ATDC and other models to make sure that you're out there operating a business. In the accelerate phase, we get very deliberate about going from just being a company to actually finding customers and growth. If you're a B2G company, a B2C company, a B2B company, pairing you with some of the best in the country. If you're a retail direct-to-consumer marketplace company, you're learning from Target, Walmart, PayPal, Shopify, some of the best in the world training you. But to your point about the pace setters, when you get into scale, we are making a bet on the 10 companies we think have the strongest opportunity for growth and scale. And we're supporting them with complete wraparound services. That's office space, legal, accounting, marketing, IT. All of those things would normally create drag for a small business. We're eliminating them. So if you guys are ever in the area, come down to our first floor, the Pacesetter floor. But the level of companies that we have in that space, just last week, we had one of our companies, Brown Toy Box, literally get national distribution in 1,800 Target stores, which is a game changer for her business. But then 3 days later, she was sitting in our Chase Lounge with the president, chairman, and CEO of Target stores, welcoming her to the Target family. Again, our mission is, we're only in 2 businesses, Jerome. We're literally in the readiness business and the access business. Our job is to create the platform to get companies to a point of readiness to do business at the next level. And when they're there, making sure they have the access to execute. Terry is an incredible example of that. And we've got several others. You just let me know how many you want me to share.
Yeah, well, that's fine. So talk a little bit about our sustainability model and how individuals can get involved and how they can be a support to RCIE or be a part of the center.
I believe in community solutions for community problems. And I also am not the firmest believer in a nonprofit that's 100% philanthropically dependent, especially being in the house that Herman built. So we decided to look at a model where our goal is 85-15, 85% self-generated recurring revenue, 15% corporate participation philanthropy. We're on our way, but we're set up kind of like an HBCU. And in fact, guys, we have really stolen the HBCU model and looking at our methodology of change. But our stakeholders, they pay what's considered like a tuition to be a part on a monthly basis. If we grow from 100 entrepreneurs to 1,000, that corpus that we're able to get there also funds our operations. But we have about 7 lines of revenue, Jerome, that go all the way from space usage to our podcast studio, to our photo studio, a number of ways where the center can make sure that on its own steam, it's able to build sustainability without dependence on donation. We're not there yet. And I think currently it's about 27 to 30% earned revenue that we have through the center that supports what we do. But as we grow and scale, the model is always to make sure that this place is here for generations yet unborn by creating a sustainability model that allows that to happen.
Great. What has been some of the challenges, Jay? Well, you've been 3 years. Give me a couple of challenges and how are we overcoming those challenges?
We're new. So in the greatest scheme of things, we're a startup. And so, like you said, about 3 years ago when I was brought on board, it's all the pains of starting something different and new, trying to change a model. So everything from you got to build a team, you got to build a curriculum, you got to wrap that around a mission statement, you got to raise capital for it. We got a pretty large $25 million construction project on all of that. So literally it is, how do you ramp up to be an efficient machine that actually can execute? We've done fairly well, but we got a lot of growing to do because we don't know what we don't know yet. And so being able to cycle through this first, group of entrepreneurs to learn, to collaborate. But I think, Jerome, that's one of the things how we're overcoming. We have a very, very collaborative model. This is not about competition. Even your father, that was one of his favorite sayings, collaboration beats competition every day of the week. So when you reach out to ATDC, Target, or Delta, or Home Depot, Chick-fil-A, the Atlanta Hawks, all of these partners that we have, Morehouse, Clark, Spelman, Georgia Tech, Emory, we've got great relationships with people across the strata. The way that we'll be able to scale more effectively is through our collaboration.
Got it. Let's talk about Atlanta and why Atlanta and why Atlanta for this purpose? And why is it we talk about getting it right here first because the nation is looking? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, if anybody's ever heard me speak, they know I'm Atlanta through and through. And thank you to the Rotary. This is the first time I put on a coat in probably 11 months. But I'm always wearing an Atlanta hat, Atlanta something, because I love this city. I was born and raised in this city. I've traveled to Silicon Valley, spent a lot of time in Mountain View at Google and in Cambridge with MIT and Harvard. Research Triangle, Duke, UNC. I love what they're doing in Nashville. Love what they're doing in Austin. None of them are Atlanta. None of them are as cool as Atlanta. There's not a whole lot, excuse my Google folks out there, ain't a whole lot going on in Mountain View outside of Google. Like we literally have this place, and where else on the planet can you go from Andre 3000 to Ambassador Andrew Young? The energy is here. The AUC is here. The history is here. This city has already changed the world before without firing a single shot. So when we start thinking about our big corporations that have their headquarters here, there are more corporate innovation centers in Atlanta than anywhere else. There are more Black enrolled college students in Atlanta, Georgia than any other place on the planet. Think of the place that could create a C.D. Moody, a Egbert Perry, and a Herman Russell. We have so many assets on the board, matching that culture, matching that corporate community, matching that community that we have beyond that. Atlanta is poised to make a lot of noise in all of those spaces that I talked about, Silicon Valley, Cambridge, Nashville, Austin. None of them have gotten diversity right. And none of them have figured out how to make innovation inclusive. And I think we lose GDP every year because those individuals that live on the south side of tracks in every city never think that their ideas can reach the marketplace. People have heard me say, but I think the only difference between Buckhead and Bankhead is access, opportunity, and exposure. And nobody on this call will be able to show me somebody more innovative than a single mother with 2 kids making $17,000 a year. Boom, the way she thinks, the way she problem solves. And we start to think about the power of Atlanta. We got to realize that about 50% of our population is not driving this economic conversation, how we grow, how we scale. If we're able to tap into just 10 or 15% of that, Jerome, the economic impact on those communities most affected will be a game changer. And what they need more than anything else is a safe space where they believe their ideas matter, where they belong, and they can get access to the resources needed to grow. And that's where we live. So Atlanta, I think, I don't even think anymore. The world is waiting on us to step up and get it right. And shame on us if we don't all come together and create something that history will never forget, because Atlanta's the place and it's just our time right now.
I wholeheartedly agree. I was speaking to someone on Friday or Thursday of last week, and they mentioned that the reason Microsoft, Google, and et cetera are coming here is just what Jay said, is that there's the pool of diversity and innovation and grit is here in Atlanta. So I agree. Jay, talk about the staff. I mean, it started off with you and of course, Chris. Talk a little bit about how we have evolved from an infrastructure standpoint.
Well, everybody kind of guard their HR departments because we're coming for the best in the country. So we've recently, it's funny to think that, Jerome, just a little less than 3 years ago, we were a staff of 1 in a gutted out building. But now bringing on Barunda Prince, an experienced individual as our COO. She used to run the farm for Comcast, but she's a powerhouse. She's MIT, Harvard, but most importantly, she's Washington High right here in APS, born and raised. We brought on a development director, Brittany, who is phenomenal and has hit the ground running. Program officers. And right now, guys, we have a hiring. We're out there looking for a position for our vice president of learning and innovation, the person that will be responsible for driving the curriculum. That's a posting that's out right now. We've experienced, Jerome, in this small time frame, the money that we've been able to raise to this point, the way that we've been able to staff up is certainly accelerated when you start to look at new nonprofits. And we hope to continue that kind of trajectory. Great.
Well, I want to leave some time for questions. I don't know if I can see any, but if anybody has any questions, please send them through the chat, and I will share them with Jay. Jay, what do you feel? Well, let me comment on this. Is that Jay said something earlier as it relates to kind of how we incubated. There's been incubation of entrepreneurs. One of the things that we feel here in Atlanta is the more businesses, particularly Black businesses, that can be created, it's the quickest way to close the wealth gap. We have a major disparity between white businesses and Black businesses and Latino businesses in the metropolitan Atlanta area. There's also a big gap in income inequality in Atlanta, but also there's opportunities in all of that. And There's no city like Atlanta as it relates to its Black population and the education of the population. So how do we, Jay, can you talk a little bit about the impact measures that if we look out 5 years from now, what's success look like?
If we look out 5 years from now, I mean, I love my city so much that I'm able to be honest with her. We're the worst city in the country for income inequality. We're the worst city in the country for economic immobility. 71% of Black households in Atlanta are what's considered liquid asset poor, meaning if they had a $2,000 emergency, we couldn't satisfy with our own resources. That's got to change, Jerome. And so as we look at that being our swim lane, out of everything else going on, wealth creation, household wealth creation, job creation through small business and entrepreneurship is our very narrow lens. When we start thinking about jobs created, when we start measuring things like revenue increase, when we start thinking about personal household wealth, things that we can measure with the community that we're curating, we can show our impact and perhaps scale that impact. Because if we have a subset of 100, 200, 500, we can see what worked, what didn't work, take that, scale that out for other communities. And that piece is what I get really excited about. We're partnering with some incredible firms that have global scope, that are helping us think through our metrics. Because more than anything else, we want to be data driven. We want to be outputs driven. And we want to be able to actually share what we've done with centers all over the country, because at the end of the day, what we want is what everybody else wants: more equity, more wealth in these communities that need it most. And we're going to have to be very scientific about how we get there.
Okay. Jay, what's the cycle for new membership applications?
So we are finally at a point where we'll be taking on new members. If anybody is interested or has people that are interested, go to rcie.org, join our mailing list. Within the next week and a half, you'll get an invitation to an information session. People are invited to an information session to learn about what we do, what we don't do, and who we are. If from there they want to submit an application, they're able to submit the application after attending the information session. And based on the information on that application, you get sectioned into a different stage, be it inspire, develop, execute, accelerate, scale. Think in your mind like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, graduate school, PhD. Based on where your company is and the trajectory of where it wants to go, you're placed in a stage. That piece is about to crank up now. We hope, Jerome, I believe the date is May 14th, that we'll start with new stakeholder companies. But also, guys, newsflash, it has not been announced. But in that spirit, we are also changing our name based on that very mission. The Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship will become RICE, the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs. Not just the study of entrepreneurship. This center is actually dedicated to those that do, the entrepreneurs.
Can you talk about Black female entrepreneurs and how the center is supporting them, especially given challenges with childcare?
So, I think the latest number is 57% of the entrepreneurs that we support are women. I think in Atlanta, it's certainly a dedicated focus. I think that from like a childcare standpoint, COVID has been a challenge for everything. Pre-COVID, we were talking to the YMCA, Laura, if you're on the phone, about ways that we could overcome some of those challenges through partnership and collaboration. Once we get people back in the building, once we start to actually put our arms around this new normal, we'll start to re-explore those things like childcare. We're fortunate the YMCA's headquarter office is like 4 blocks away from the center. We also have another YMCA that's about 8 blocks away from the center. But we are very concerned about the issue, even putting wellness rooms inside the building as a part of our DNA to support women entrepreneurs. So definitely is on the very high list of things that are important to us.
Okay. I think we make it to a couple more. What can private enterprise corporations do right now to assist our success?
We're always growing. And I think one of the things we're creating, I think I see another question here, Jerome, about scale to the region. We're building this business resource suite where we're able to connect entrepreneurs in real time to real time solutions. We are still in the middle of a capital campaign. We've been fortunate to raise a little over 28 million in the past 2.5 years, but we got a pretty big project in front of us. So we're trying to get to that $45 million mark to make sure we're able to create a debt-free center that's able to have a sustainability plan attached to it, where yes, it's here for 7 generations yet unborn. So always there's financial support, but also there's the skill-based volunteerism. I love being able to connect companies to companies that can support them. And it's not just about the check, but when you talk about Target as an organization, yes, it helped Terry grow her business. But if we ignore the self-esteem, self-confidence, the belief, the anxiety, the isolation that an entrepreneur feels, we're going to miss the mark. We focus on the whole entrepreneur. So if I'm a small business and I am a direct-to-consumer marketplace company, and I'm being trained by Target how to be a better one, it's not just about the information. It's about how I feel about my possibilities. That confidence is everything. So any of our corporate partners, there are multiple asks that we have of them. And it's not just the financial piece. It's about the access piece as well. Because Jerome, there's a huge opportunity to open up the books and look at procurement opportunities, supply chain opportunities for these businesses. And if these companies can help us understand where the hockey puck is going in their industry, I guarantee we can train the next Wayne Gretzky to score. I think we just have too much corporate power to not actually be able to manufacture wins. Ryan Wilson talks about that a lot. And I think we have the capacity to literally support companies and manufacture wins. And the corporate community has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I know that Atlanta per capita for African Americans, particularly on consumer products, is number one for African Americans in the United States. Per capita, and in some cases, the number one market for corporations in these various platforms throughout. It's a top city. Okay. All right. Well, any closing remarks, Jay? You want to leave the Atlanta Rotary?
I guess I'm inspired, but I got a bag of chips on my desk here. It's a story like this is what we do. It's Symphony Chips. I met this young son of a father that had a spice company about 1.5 years ago. They were the best chips that I ever tasted. At the time, he was doing 20 cases out of the back of his trunk. We brought them in, got them some new publishing, some new marketing, changed their packaging, trained them up on scale and distribution. But now you can find those chips in Target stores, TJ Maxx, and Walmart. That's a game-changing shift for that individual and his family and his 2 daughters to help him run the company. We're not trying to make that a one-off. We're trying to design a system that will combat systems. And we are looking at creating this model to move companies along a continuum so there are more Symphony Chips to create more wealth and community. So thank you, Rotary, for making sure that you got a little taste of our vision. But I also offer Jerome that, if interested, come by and see what we're building. We're building something very special on the West Side. And I think it's different from anything else that I've seen in the country. And it's right here in Atlanta, right here in Castleberry Hill, in honor of one of the greatest entrepreneurs this city has ever produced.
All right. Well, Jay, I want to thank you. Atlanta Rotary, this for me, this came about when we decided to move our business to Atlantic Station, H.J. Russell and Company. And we never considered selling the building, but the plan was not to drop it into the not-for-profit. Best thing that we could have done, because it really created this as a community project with an economic development initiative. So we will continue to need your support. We will continue to need your uplifting. We will continue to ask you for your prayers, because Atlanta, everybody's looking at what's going on here. We all know that, and we have to really rise up and lead. And I just want to say, we're going to have to get a little bit more comfortable with the uncomfortable as we go forward, because ultimately that's what brings to change. And we have the spirit here that we can collaborate, we can agree to disagree, but we can also move forward. So thank you for allowing Jay as a speaker, and we look forward to the future. Thank you. All right, Cannon.
Well, Jerome, so well summarized there. Thank you. And Jay, I can understand why people say they do not want to go after you as a speaker. You bring passion. It's great just listening to you talk about the work you're doing. And in the short time we have left, just 1 or 2 minutes, if you don't mind, just a couple other questions. I mean, there's, you talked about making a safe place to fail and fly. I think you worded it that way. And it's such a beautiful concept. I mean, that's what entrepreneurs need, right? A safe place to be able to do that. And there's so many optimistic things happening from what you're talking about. So question for you, and Jerome, like you were talking about, all eyes are increasingly on Atlanta. A lot of it around, just coming out of the voting laws and racial divisiveness at a time when, our city doesn't want that or need that. So many great optimistic things happening at the Russell Center. What would you say, to our community in this world of more increasing divisiveness, based on the optimistic success you're having?
I mean, I think that candidates, I think that we need each other more than ever. I mean, I think the greater humanity that exists in all of us is arising. That there's an opportunity here in Atlanta to show the rest of the world how it's done as far as production. I think Atlanta's a much better city when 50% of our population is actually participating in the economic growth and feel like they have belonging. I think the great divide has always been access. That companies had big dreams, but they didn't have the access necessary to live them out. I think the Russell Center becomes a convener, a hub, a distribution network, but most importantly, a connector to big opportunities and access to entrepreneurs that have always lacked it. And I think what we're going to see come out of it will surprise us all. And I think that, for one of our goals is to create 2,000 jobs in the next 5 years. But I hope we eclipse that number by 3.
Well, it's a wonderful concept. I mean, if you succeed in creating 2,000 jobs, our community wins, right? We're expanding a pie, and that just starts to solve so many other problems that seem to get in the way. So it's beautiful work you're doing. You offered, I think I heard you offer, to be able to come out and do a tour of the center. I'd love to, when we can all get together again, perhaps we can get a group of us to come out and those of us who are not familiar with it yet get to learn a little bit more.
I'd love it. It's one thing to hear us talk about it. It's another thing to see what we're building.
Well, it's great. Well, so thank you both very much. Jay, thank you for coming with us today. It's such great time well spent.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you.